Welcome to Passing the Plate, the podcast that's all about food, traditions, and the wonderful connections they create. I'm Lisa Lisson, the genealogist and family history expert behind Are You My Cousin?
And I'm Ashley Covelli, the food writer and recipe developer behind Big Flavors from a Tiny Kitchen. We'll be your guides on this flavor-packed adventure. We're not just talking about recipes. We're diving into family history, exploring new cultures, and preserving favorite recipes for future generations. In short, we're celebrating the stories and tastes that come with every bite.
So grab a seat at the table and let's embark on a journey of flavor, tradition, and connection. This is Passing the Plate, where every episode is a feast for the senses and a celebration of the ties that nourish our souls. It's fall, and that means it's apple season. From pie making to snacking, apples are a kitchen staple in many households. Today, we'll be talking about some of our favorite apple-centric foods and memories.
So here in Westchester County, New York, apple orchards get crazy busy during the picking seasons. So there's field trips, family trips, and honestly, there's a lot of hipsters who make the commute from New York City to kind of get in touch with nature for a little day trip. The lines honestly can get so long that people don't like naming what orchards they like to go to because they're afraid they'll get overrun with day trippers. So,
are you serious?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The one that we go to the most often, it didn't used to ever be super crowded. And the last time we went, which has been a couple of years now, the line went out of the orchard of cars, like out of the orchard, way down the street, like near the highway. It was a lot.
I've literally never seen a line for like apple picking or, strawberry picking or blueberry picking. I've never seen an actual line like that.
So I think part of it is because I'm so close to New York City. So like I'm about 45 minutes north, but if you go another 15, 20 minutes north of here, you'll find a lot of things like orchards and stuff. So it's close enough and people can take the train. So it's accessible for city dwellers. But yeah, I think that's kind of why they get so overrun. So yeah, before I lived here, I hadn't picked apples before, and I hadn't heard of things like apple cider donuts. I mean, I have enjoyed apple cider for as long as I can remember, but I had no idea how many ways that was used.
I love picking apples, and I really haven't had an opportunity to do it very often. North Carolina is absolutely known for apples. The western part of the state is where you're going to find those. So we used to always stop and buy our apples at the roadside stands when I was a kid. We would do this on our visits to the North Carolina mountains, and I had family members who had houses up in the North Carolina mountains, so we would go and visit, and they were always the best, guys. I can still taste those today. They were very tart, they were very crisp, and they were just my absolute favorite to do. So while they're absolutely places to go pick up there, I just didn't actually grow up doing that. But I have been apple picking in New England, the very stereotypical New England trip, visiting in-laws up there, and we got to go to this beautiful apple orchard, and my sister-in-law took us to, and those were the best apples, and they've just... the trees were just so heavy with the apples. They would literally have the branches propped up so they wouldn't break. And it was really wonderful. I could tell that this place was probably very busy at times, I'm sure. But they, that day, we didn't have to wait in line for it. But they had, of course, the apples and apple cider that you could taste there. And now we did buy a lot of apple cider on the roadside stands as well. That is something that we absolutely loved as kids. So definitely was one of the ones.
Those roadside stands, whenever you see them, it's like, I don't know, I always get excited. Like, you just know. Best. Yeah. I run into them occasionally out here. I know when we drive down to Maryland every year, we'll see them like in Delaware and Maryland on the side of the road. And the place we stay has a kitchen, so I'm always tempted to like get a little bit of produce from there.
Oh, sure.
But yeah, the orchards out here, they'll have even online, they have maps and like a schedule of which variety of apple will be ripe or available for picking at what time, because they have to, rotate it and make sure that everything is actually ready to pick, I guess.
That makes sense. I can't say, when I've gone to purchase them for the roadside stands or, the once or twice that I get an opportunity to actually be in an actual apple orchard to pick, I can't say I'm very specific about the types. I'm usually there for the experience and
right.
just because I love apples of all kinds. I do tend to like the tart apple that you can get a little bit more often in the orchards as opposed to, say, just going and buying the Granny Smith at the store.
Right.
But yeah, definitely.
The only one I can say that I kind of try to avoid is a Macintosh because they tend to be a little mealy, I feel like.
I agree.
But yeah. And at our orchard, they have these tools that I can't remember what it's called, but it's basically like a big broom handle with a kind of grabber thing at the end and a little sack attached to it, so you can reach up high in the trees, turn it, and it'll pull the apple and it'll catch it in the little sack for you.
How fun.
So that's like, it's an extra $10 or whatever, but it lets you get to apples that you normally wouldn't be able to reach, and depending on what time in the season you go, you might not be able to, like the reachable ones might be gone.
I hadn't thought about that. That makes perfect sense. Yeah, definitely.
And then also, if you go toward the end of apple picking season, the bees get angry. I don't know if you've experienced that ever, but you've had a season's worth of people picking apples. There's a lot that fall on the ground and start to either decompose or they're cracked open. And the bees are feisty. And in fact, one year, my son, he was maybe like 2 or 3 years old. And we were walking and I saw a bee land on his chin and I was like, oh no. And it stung him right on the face. And it was like, it happened in slow motion. I couldn't get to him fast enough, but I was like, I guess we'll find out if he's allergic to bees today. Luckily we were almost done anyway, but we definitely ended up leaving, and it was a little traumatic for all of us involved, but, we soldiered on. But yeah, I feel like it can be a little tricky depending on how crowded it is, how angry the bees are.
Oh, yeah. I can't say I had a tremendous... The thing I remember about yellow jackets and apples is that my grandfather had an apple tree in the backyard, but it was more these little tiny green... They really weren't eating apples. I wouldn't call it crab apple, but they were small. They never... it's not like it was a tree to grow apples to eat on. And those things they were great because they were over at the sandbox. So the sandbox was shady, but then they'd fall in the sandbox, so they were fun. And then they would start to, as you say, get toward the end, and then the yellow jackets would come in. And so, yeah, I'm very much afraid of yellow jackets, and and any experience when I've gone produce picking strawberries. Oh, yeah. That's another place to find them is when I go strawberry picking in the spring. Definitely the yellow jackets you got to watch out for. But yeah. So anyway, all right, yellow jackets aside, what's your favorite way of actually eating an apple? Because for me, it is straight from the bag.
Yeah. I like them, I'll slice up an apple. I like doing it with peanut butter sometimes. Oh, yes. Sometimes just plain. If I'm into baking, my favorite is Dutch apple pie. It's got a little kind of crumb topping. It's one that my family's been making for so many years. It's great to make. Apple crisp is always great. Homemade applesauce. I have a mulled cider kind of spiced applesauce that I make. And you can do it in a slow cooker or an Instant Pot or on the stovetop. And it's the nice part about when you make your own applesauce is you can make it as thick or thin as you like. Because I know some people like it chunky, some people don't. You can leave the peels on, which I tend to do, but you don't have to. You can also, if you have a juicer, you can fresh apple juice is a totally different experience, I find, than the, bottled apple juice from the store. I also like, if you've ever grated an apple into like an overnight muesli, it's pretty flavorful and it adds a little texture to it.
That sounds really good. I make an apple pie oatmeal that I like to eat for breakfast in the fall. So it's nothing kind of crazy, but it's just, I personally like oatmeal, so I make a bowl of oatmeal. But I also will, before I start the oatmeal, I'll saute the apples, and then I put the oatmeal and cook the oatmeal with them, and then at the end I put what's called apple pie seasoning. So if that's, again, go back, if you think about our spice blend recipe episode that we talked about a few episodes ago, I make my own spice blend. And so it's just cinnamon, and I think there's a little cardamom in there, and a little bit of nutmeg goes in there, and I think sometimes I even throw a little ginger in there. So so I just, it was one of those I just found online, and so I just made my own. It's called Apple. And then I put little pecans or almonds on top of it.
Now, do you do like regular rolled oats, or do you do steel cut?
I do the regular ones.
Just curious.
Not instant. Definitely not instant.
Yeah. I tend to prefer these days, at least, the steel cut. They're a little chewier. They're not for everybody.
Longer. They take a little longer too as well. Yeah, and so usually for me it's a little bit of a time thing. I don't really. I guess I'm a little impatient by that point.
I've been doing steel cut oats in the Instant Pot lately because it does cook quite faster than it would on the stovetop for,
If you do that, would you... Two questions. So if I were going to take my apple pie oatmeal and make it in the Instant Pot, first of all, can you make one serving, or do you really need to make more than one serving to make it for the Instant Pot?
You would probably need to make more so that it would have enough liquid, because you kind of you can't, I think it might be hard to do that.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah,
I've also never done regular oats in there. I've only done, now I think you could maybe in a slow cooker, but that's not going to help you in a time aspect.
Okay, I was just curious about that. Yeah, because the part I like about the Instant Pot is you can, I could do all my sauteing of my apples ahead of time, and then convert it over. But yeah, usually I'm the only one eating that, so it's probably just as easy to do it on the stove.
It could be worth Googling if anybody has like a way to make regular oats in the Instant Pot. But yeah, I think you would have to make a batch. But I wonder if they would freeze all right, Back to like helping future you. If you made a batch of, say, 4 servings and then have one that day, have one the next day or 2 days later or whatever, and then freeze a couple.
Huh, I hadn't thought about that.
Maybe.
I'll have to look it up.
There's also, I like oatmeal. When the packets, the like Quaker instant oatmeal packets, I used to get them in college, and me and my friend Megan, we liked the opposite flavors. So I liked the banana and the blueberry, and she liked the apple and the peach. So we would buy them and we would swap, so we only had the kinds that we liked.
Oh, that's a good idea, actually. Yeah. That's an excellent idea. I don't care. I don't care for the instant ones at all.
Yeah, not these days.
Not at all. In fact, I never have. They're watery. They just taste very artificial to me. Usually because so much of it's flavoring and it's artificial flavoring. So I think that's why I don't like it. But sorry, I took us off on an oatmeal tangent there. But I guess we really are talking about apples.
I'm always happy to go on a tangent on any type of food.
I do love the fact that you said you like apples with peanut butter, because absolutely I would do that. My kids had that growing up. I put a lot of things with peanut butter. I mean, I put carrots in peanut butter, but I love the fact that you put the apples in the peanut butter.
Did I tell you I tried that? Because you had said that you did carrots and peanut butter. I did try it, and it was good. Yeah, and I liked it. Yeah, I would have never thought to put that together on my own. So thank you for the recommendation.
You are welcome. We hope you enjoy listening to Passing the Plate, and we'd love it if you added a pinch of spice to our recipe by leaving us a review. It lets others know what they're in for and helps us keep serving up these delicious, heartwarming stories.
So after you devour the latest episode, pop open your favorite podcast app and leave us a review. We appreciate your support and can't wait to share more delicious adventures with you on Passing the Plate. Some other more like kind of different ways of using apples. There's this cheesy bacon and apple croissant recipe that I like with the Pillsbury. See, like when it's in the roll, I feel like it's called crescents, but then croissants, I don't know. I'm not, we're not the pronunciation police here, and I'm not a croissant type, but, so you basically, if you have bacon jam, or you could just use like a piece of bacon if you wanted, but a little bacon jam on the dough, and then a little slice of apple and some cheddar, and you roll it up and you bake it, and it's a very good like sweet and salty kind of thing. It makes a nice appetizer.
That sounds good.
Yeah, I did. I a couple years ago I got a dehydrator, and so making apple chips is always. I always loved apple chips, and they're like it's like they're so expensive, but really, if you can dehydrate your own, like it's a lot less cost prohibitive, and you can put like your apple pie spice. You could put that on them if you wanted to, and that that's a fun snack. And the other, I would say, like, kind of unique one that I made, I did some baked apple spice donuts, and that was a sponsored post years ago with Stonyfield and this granola, a company that makes some granola. So I did a maple frosting that I made with the yogurt and the little pumpkin granola on top.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, there's lots of different ways, but I would say overall, I mostly eat them raw.
I think that I would too, but I have to ask, is that apple spice donut hard to make?
No, no. And honestly, if you buy a donut pan,
Uh-huh.
baking them is so much less involved than frying. And I mean, I'm not calling donuts healthy, but it's a lot healthier than a
Right.
fried donut. Yeah.
All right. My baking list has just gotten really big, but future me would really love to have some baked apple spice donuts
Yeah,
in the freezer. So I'm just
absolutely.
going to put that out there.
Yeah. Um, oh, actually, now that I think about it, though, one of the really most unique recipes that I've seen with apples, and this was from Chef Dan Kluger. I years ago went to a cooking demo in New York City, and he had this method of cooking salmon. And I'm like salmon and apples. Stay with me.
Okay.
It's got a lot of components because he's a chef and it's a little showy offy. But you pan fry some herbs with chili peppers and sunflower seeds, and then it has some raw apple that's diced, and you like hold it in lemon water until you're ready to plate. And you bake the salmon in the oven, like in a skillet that you cover, so it just like slowly cooks in the oven.
Mhm.
It was just like a very different the flavor combination. It was just like really super different, and I enjoyed it. I did make it at home once. It was a little involved, but that method was interesting, and just the fact that you could like have diced apples with some other things on top of fish was really an interesting combination in my mind.
That does sound interesting. I want to look at that because that's not something I would have ever thought to put with a salmon.
Oh, totally. And it had some Brussels sprouts and avocado, so it was like definitely a little, again, combination I would have never thought of, but was delicious.
But it's things that I love all those
Mm-hmm.
things, and
Yeah.
so yeah, what an interesting. Oh, definitely want to look that one up and
Yeah.
take a peek at that one.
So I was looking and I found a roundup on Food Network's website about 55 best apple recipes for fall and beyond. And, they've got, some classic things, but then some interesting ones. They have an apple cheddar soup.
Oh, that sounds
Yeah.
delicious.
They've got this typical like apple crisp, apple sauce, apple meringue cupcakes. They have a cheddar and apple grilled cheese sandwich, which I've actually done. I've done a grilled ham. I want to say like ham and Swiss with some grainy mustard and apple slices and some baby arugula or something, and that was a really nice combo. You get like the sweet and the salty and everything.
I've definitely done apples with grilled like with cheddar and on grilled cheese type thing.
Yeah. They have a caramel apple soft pretzels that look really good. It's got like a drizzle of homemade caramel glaze on top that looks delicious. Apple cinnamon pancakes, and then apple slaw with an apple jalapeno dressing. So they've got a lot of fun recipes on here.
I
Autumn
like that
apple
they have some.
sangria.
They have some very traditional types of recipes or combinations that we would think of, but they also have some that are quite different. As you said, apple autumn sangria would not think about that, obviously. So they've got some unique way. Cheesecake stuffed apples. Okay, that might be good. Just say. My sweet tooth is going today, guys.
Yeah. Shredded beaten apple salad. I would gobble that up. I love stuff like that.
Oh, that sounds delicious. Absolutely. And I would not think of adding those two together. So
turkey, apple, Swedish meatballs.
I just landed on that one.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
So so it says these savory meatballs have a secret ingredient, apple. They help keep the lean ground turkey nice and juicy.
I wouldn't have thought about that, but that makes a lot of sense. Because ground turkey can get
dry out.
Dry. Mm-hmm. And so that's an excellent way of doing that.
Okay, wait. Oh. Cornbread stuffed baked apples. Did you see that one?
I just saw it, yes.
We're scrolling at the same rate here. So I feel like, a lot of times people with apples or any ingredient, you kind of think of the way that you're most familiar with enjoying them. But there's all sorts of ways to change things up. And if there's an ingredient you like, I feel like there's usually both sweet and savory ways to enjoy it. You just got to get a little creative and don't be afraid to branch out.
I agree. I think I'm really realizing, just as we've talked and listening to your experiences, and then, of course, looking through that the apple is so much more versatile than I realized, even going in, because I know you and I had talked, getting ready as we were wanting to record this episode. And, I was just amazed at all the ways that you had for using apples. And I thought, so at that point, I'm thinking there's so many ways, but now I'm realizing just how versatile that it can be used. Everything from flavor to like that turkey meatball with apples, the apple acting as a way to keep it from drying out. So I just thought that was a really interesting thing that I wouldn't have ever thought about.
Well, and I think too, like apple, because it's so crisp and refreshing when it's not cooked, you can really enjoy it raw in a lot of ways or cooked. I know there was a Cooking Light recipe years ago for like a chicken cutlet dish that may have had like a maple glaze or something, but it had a slaw with it that was apples and Brussels sprouts. Neither were cooked. It was just like kind of shaved. And that was also like a really great combination.
That does sound good.
Mm-hmm. All right, now that we're hungry.
Yes.
Find the recipes we discussed in this episode along with the show notes at passingtheplate.org/37. That's a wrap on this episode of Passing the Plate. We hope you enjoyed our journey into the world of food, traditions, and the amazing connections they create.
It's been a pleasure sharing these stories and flavors with you. Remember, food is more than just sustenance. It's a way to connect with our past, present, and future.
So keep sharing your meals, keep passing those plates, and keep creating memories that will last a lifetime. Head to passingtheplate.org/podcast for show notes.